Matt. So I'm going to shoot my first video on, Matt tries to do things video on this CB350 I've been restoring for the last 2 years, which is now fully titled, and I'm finally legal, so I can finally get going with it. And I thought I was done, and the big issue was this exhaust. So I wasn't sure what this exhaust is. This is not the stock exhaust. So I just figured it was some cheap kind of aftermarket thing, but when I run it, it sounds incredible. So I went to the Honda CB forums on Reddit and asked for some ID help. And I've come to learn that this is actually a Hooker's 2-in-1 performance exhaust for the Honda CBs. And back in the late 60s, early 70s, Hooker was making a lot of these type of performance exhausts, and I believe it because it's well, I don't know if it's adding power or not, but I can tell you that it sounds incredible. Anyway, when I bought this bike, I'll get more into it in another video on the whole history of it, but it was a basket case. And one of the things was this exhaust that was a major problem. When I pulled this off the bike, this was home to many animals, and it was covered in some sort of black paint. So it didn't come with black paint, but somebody had painted it with black paint, but everything was rusted where it wasn't covered by black paint, and I dumped probably 5 pounds of birdseed out of here, and the amount of ground wasps and everything living in this bike was pretty incredible. So I've come to now knowing that this exhaust may be worth more than I actually paid for the bike itself. I wanted to see if I can try to bring this thing back to life. The headers are a little bit gone, too far gone. They look okay now, but in 1 week sitting in my garage in the Wisconsin winter, all the salt in the air, it just rusts like crazy. So hopefully, right now, I'll show a couple pictures of where this thing started, and let's see, I'll try to remember them. Basically, I take the exhaust off, and I ended up stripping the whole bike. Every part came off, and I ended up painting the bike. What I used was aircraft stripper to remove the original paint on here, which was a bear to take off. But I got most of that off, and then there was a bunch of sanding, wire wheel, everything to get it to a state where it's pretty bare metal. If it came with chrome on it, that chrome was long gone. So I want to get this thing looking all right. And let's see, I'll show you what I'm working with. If you saw in those pictures just how rusted up it was in the front, it really detracts from the amount of work I've put into this bike, because you just see this big glowing, you know, orange from the rust. Where I mean, it's not a showpiece bike, it's never going to be, but I really wanted that orange not to be as present. Now what I'm thinking I'm going to do is, just kind of hold it here, the muffler part of this I've gotten, I believe it's going to be okay. I mean, I polished it, and I think I can keep this from rusting too much. The headers are just too far gone. It's too far pitted. I'd have to take off so much metal that I think I have to paint this part. My plan is, I really like how this looks here though. It's kind of got this steampunkish look. I've got the heat shields, and they are perfect. I brought them completely back to life. The chrome on them is good, but this is just going to rust as soon as I put it back into the garage. So I'm thinking I'm going to tape up here, right here, and paint everything on this side with VHT high temperature paint. Pretty much not for looks, but to protect it. So I'm going to put the gray primer down, and then I'm going to put the black, just go black VHT, just to kind of hide this, not to make it a showpiece part of the bike, but to make it not detract. Because I want to keep this. If it doesn't work, then I'll just paint the whole thing black. But I've gotten this part back to life enough that I think I want to keep it. At least try it out. I'll talk about what I've done to this exhaust and what I plan to do to this exhaust. And there are two big chemical heavy lifters at the beginning of this. Number one thing I did, the first thing, was used aircraft remover to remove as much of that black paint as I could. And I originally tried with the spray aircraft remover, and you could do that if you want to waste your time and just get mad at things. Cut the bullshit, go right to this. It's a really thick jelly, pour it into something. You want to wear nitrile gloves just to protect yourself a little bit. The aircraft remover, it's going to eat right through these still, but it gives you a couple seconds. This is absolutely nasty stuff, but it's what you want to use if you want to get the job done. So I'd covered the whole thing hung in the garage. After about 15, well, you see it working right away, but after about 15 minutes, you can scrape a lot of the paint off. This one was a lot harder than the frame and everything else on the bike, just because this paint that they used must have had much better adhesion on this part. The second chemical that I used quite a bit was Evapo-rust to try to take as much rust out of the pitted areas as I could. And I pretty much rigged up a bath, and I actually put a submersible. I couldn't fit the whole thing in the 5 gallons of Evapo-rust that I had, so I actually put it into a big 30-gallon tote and put a submersible pump in there and just continuously flowed Evapo-rust over different parts of this. So right now, we'll talk about this side of the exhaust, really the muffler side of it. I've got it really nice and flat, and you can still see these pitted areas. And this is paint that I've still not been able to remove after hitting it with tons of sandpaper, chemical, everything like that. I just can't get all of it off, and I might have to just live with this. I actually like how it looks. There's also these little spots in here, and those are pitted areas where this had no chrome left on it. So when that paint went in, that paint went into those pitted areas, and no matter what I do, I can't get that paint out. So I'm just going to have to live with that. This is the header, though, and this is so far pitted that no matter what I do, I can't bring this back to a finish like this. This is going to rust no matter what I do. I mean, I can see that some has already formed overnight from when I went at this. So this is going to get painted to protect it, to keep this from rusting anymore. How I got this part of the can to this finish is once I'd taken, most of all the paint off, I hit it with a wire brush, brass, to take more of the paint off, and then more aggressive sandpaper. And what I did is I wet sanded it, and the final 3 that I did, you just find some different grits. I went 1200, 1500, and then eventually 2000 grit. And what I do is I grab an old sponge or something, cut it in half, so it gives you a nice pressing area, and then you can form it around the different geometries, keep it wet, and just keep going over it, and you get to this type of finish. The last thing I do is use some Mother's Mag and aluminum polish. So it says perfect for all metals, shines, and protects. And what you do, put a little bit of that on there. It is sort of like this white chalky goopy, not really goop, but chalky substance. And you rub it over it, and this is what it ends up looking like. It's not dirt it's taking off. It's taking pieces of metal off. So that black, I mean, that's steel coming off. So do not use this on chrome, because it's going to rip the chrome right off. Chrome is a really thin protective layer of chromium on the outside that's deposited on the metal. If you don't have any chrome, then knock yourself out. Use something like that. If you do have chrome, like I've got on these heat shields, so these came back really nice. So these will sit sort of there and there. So these took a bath in the Evapo-rust for a day or two, and then I hit them with some chrome polish. Not that Mother's stuff that would rip that chrome finish right off of it. I marked this spot. I think from here back, I want to keep it non-painted. From here forward, I want to paint it so I don't get that rust coming back. This is an area that it shows a decent amount of pitting. It feels nice and smooth now. I know I'm going to get some rust coming back here, and I accept that. But I don't think I want to just go right here. I think I want to go all the way to here in keeping this sort of, bare metal look. Up here, what I'm going to do is go over this, clean this one more time. I'm going to rough this, well, it's roughed up now, but I'm going to go over this, clean this off, degrease it with some starter fluid. And what I'm going to do is apply a coat or two of VHT flame-proof primer. And it's rated for up to like 2,000 degrees or something like that. Anyway, it's you could do yourself better if you have a paint booth and some nice 2-component paints, but I don't have that, and I want to get this running soon because I want to be able to run it. So I'm going with the VHT, and it's more for protection than it is for looks. So I'll put a layer of primer down on the headers and everything up front of here. And I'm reading this, and it doesn't look like it needs a full 2 days or anything to dry. It needs, it says on the back that you can apply the top coat over it in about an hour. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll get the primer down, sand it and then I'll put another layer of primer down and wait an hour. And then we're going to get to the flame-proof top coat. And I'm just going with the black, so it's rated for 1300 to 2000 degrees or whatever. I know it's not going to stay on there forever. I'm probably going to have to touch it up every winter, but you know, that is what it is. And once I get that on there, we're ready to bolt this bad boy back onto the bike. So we'll see how that works out. Hopefully this will be useful to somebody, and hopefully I get this Hookers 2-in-1 back to life, because I've never seen another one in the wild outside of my buddy just bought a bike and had the same one. So maybe not as rare as I thought. But I've never seen another picture with a CL350 with it, so we'll see. I'll show you what I'm planning to do here. Since I don't actually have to do the entire exhaust, I don't have to hang it from the ceiling. What I've done is put a couple 10-pound weights in this bucket, so I will be able to spin the headers around on the main exhaust. And I hung the other header through my little alligator clips. Funny thing about that, I actually made this as a grounding wire for somebody who was shocking themselves with their VoIP phone at work, and I didn't believe her that it was actually happening until I actually saw it happen. And she was shocking herself to the phone, so that was incredible. Anyway, humidifier fixed that up, and now we got this. The other thing I did is put a couple little silicone plugs into the threads there. I don't care if paint gets inside of the exhaust, it doesn't matter, it's just rusted out anyway. And then what we're gonna do is throw 2 light coats. Let's see if, oh shoot, I should have left this off. All right, 2 light coats, about 8 to 10 inches. Doesn't have to look done on the first one. I've learned that from going heavy in the past. You're gonna get runs. It's not as big a deal on the primer because you're gonna end up sanding a bunch of it off anyway. On the top coat, it becomes a big deal. So 2 light coats, 8 to 10 inches away. Spread them out by 10 minutes apart. And then a final medium coat, just so it starts to look a little bit wet. It's going to look a little bit dry on the first ones. I've also got a glove for my left hand if I need to reposition something. And I'm told you should wear gloves on both hands, but I'm not going to. Something I've learned in the past, if this glove is not perfectly tight over your index finger that you're going to be pressing down on this trigger with, that piece of glove can end up flapping over the top. It gets in the spray and it starts sputtering out. So whatever, I'll wash my hands after this, no problem. So if you have that issue like I've had in the past, don't wear a glove on your spraying hand, just deal with it. So that was coat number one. What I did, I went real far away, and I just want to avoid getting any runs. It's not going to look perfect, not even close. I'm going to slowly fill in the pits on this. So I'm not painting a flat surface, I'm painting a pitted surface. So that's why it might be tough to see, but it's pretty damn obvious in person that that's not totally filled in yet, but we're going to slowly get to that. So here's what we look like after the 3 coats. I've got this on here, and it's about a half hour into the drying. Once the rest of this next half hour, so it's a full hour, is up, I'll give it a light sanding, a light wet sanding if it doesn't feel tacky at all, and clean that up, and then it's going to be ready for the top coat. So it does seem like I'm rushing this a little bit, but I'm going to show you something interesting I just found, because the primer does not have the same cure as the top coat. Top coat versus primer. Something I noticed, I'm looking up the specs on this paint, and something it says to do to cure the top coat, you can either do it on the vehicle or off the vehicle. Since I don't have an oven that can fit an exhaust, it's going to be on the vehicle. Basically, you got to run the thing at idle, cool for 20. Run it idle for 20, cool for 20. Then it says run under normal operating conditions for 30 minutes. Since I can't do the normal operating conditions, I would just idle it again. What's interesting to me is that it doesn't say the same thing for the primer. And I'm looking at this, it's 4:30 right now, which means if I can put a top coat on in about 45 minutes, I'm at 5:15, then 3 hours for the top coat to dry, I'm at 8:15, then the curing looks like it's about another hour worth. Can I do this today? And how pissed are the neighbors gonna be? That's a good question. Not sure. This might have to wait till tomorrow. I can finish up the priming and everything. One thing I really don't know, it says basically you cure it after it's fully dried. Well, do I have to cure it as soon as those 3 hours are up? Or can I actually, no, there's nothing that says I don't have to. I can do the cure tomorrow. I can paint it today, I can do the cure tomorrow. That's what's gonna happen. Here we are, about 2.5 hours after finished up priming them. I went outside and chipped about an inch of ice off my fucking driveway. Ate some dinner, and now these are dry. And what I'm going to do is get some sandpaper and some 2000 coarse or grit sandpaper and just smooth this out and dry them up. And then they'll be ready for the top coat. As you can see on here, there's still that pitting, and I was never really going to fully get that out. And then, I just kind of accepted that. One thing I thought I could do is continually put more and more coats of primer on to fill those holes, and then when I sand it off, it may become dry or flat and flush all around it. The issue with doing that, though, is that you run into a situation where you may be putting on the paint way too thick, and you put paint on way too thick, all of a sudden it starts to lose some of those protective qualities it has, and it's going to make it more susceptible to chipping and whatnot. So those pits I can live with, and they'll flush out a little bit more when the top coat goes in. But if this was on a non-heated part of the bike, what you could do to actually fix that is use some Bondo body filler here, which you bring it down to the bare metal like I had it before, and it's kind of like a putty, and I'd put it over here, fill in all those little holes. Once this is dry, sand it off, and you'll have a flat surface. So actually a good example of where I could do that and where I may need to do that is on this my turn signal here. Let's see if I can bring you in a little bit closer to see what I'm talking about. This was a once chromed part here, and this rusts. It rusts now. So I've hit this with some steel wool, and you can keep bringing it back to here, and you just got to come with some steel wool every once in a while. What I could do is actually take this Bondo here, fill it in, and wait till it dries, sand it, prime it, paint it, and then I can have this painted. And yeah, I might do that, but I like how it looks now. I mean, I'd prefer it be nice and chrome, but I like the metal look, so I'm gonna leave this. I may end up coming back and painting some of these things in the future though. So let's get ready to top coat. The top coat. This is much harder to do than the primer because the top coat is going to go on thinner, it's going to be runnier, and you don't have the the fallback of being able to sand it off. I mean, you have to redo the whole thing. So I'm going to go even lighter on these coats than I did for the primer. I went a little brazen with the primer, but I was still pretty light, so let's try this out. And if you got a paint booth, you should use it. But I don't. Actually, I probably do have access to one of these days. About 4 hours away. When I do my interceptor, I may do that. The interceptor means a little bit more to me than this bike does. This bike means a lot because this is the first real bike I've completely disassembled and built up, and I've learned a ton from it. But the interceptor over there, that was my first bike at 16, so not a whole lot of people still have their first bike. I'm lucky enough that I still do. And tearing it down, getting ready to do a valve job on it. If you're taking apart a V4 carburetor, then you've met the devil too. Alright, so that's all I'm doing for this first one. I want to get that base down there. And we'll put a couple more coats on there. I'll put one more light one like that, and then one more. Actually, I'm just going to do two more like that. I'm not going to put a heavy-ish. I'm just afraid of running a drip on this thing. So if I just got to keep doing light coats, then I got to keep doing light coats. I'm going to be conservative on this, not try to take off too much, because having to rework it, you just threw extra days into the process to try to save yourself 5 minutes, so we'll see. It's the next day, and I've removed all the masking and everything, and the line came out pretty cool, so I'm happy with how this looks now. I don't expect this coating to be, terribly durable. I can already see I'm going to just scuff it up. I'm going to scuff the shit out of it just getting it onto the bike, but again, the main purpose wasn't looks up here. It was to really give it a protective barrier to curb some of the rusting. A couple other parts I did. These collars came, they may have had some kind of plating on them. It looked like almost like chrome paint though, but I don't think that's the case. Anyway, these were suffering from some rust, so I gave them a bath in the Evapo-rust and cleaned them off and painted those with the same high-temp paint. And while I was at it, I actually have a kickstand I needed to do, so that's actually that's a black enamel on there, a gloss. So it's time to get this on the bike and do the cure cycle if I can get it running, because it's really cold, but that is what it is. Taking a look here, I've got the exhaust mounted back up. Like I thought, I nicked it a couple times. Putting this exhaust on is a little bit tricky. Yeah, that's actually why I nicked it up a couple times. Word of advice if you're doing this. So there's a couple things you got to do. You've got to there's two flanges that go around, so those are on the inside, and then the collar sits over it. Basically what I do is and I forgot to do it this time, I tried to line it up and push it all in at once, that doesn't work. So put in the full main exhaust on this right side header, push that in with the flange, put the collar over it, hang it on the back. Now this isn't going to match up with the stock CL350, I'm pretty sure this is kind of set for this hooker exhaust. Set that up, and then you can push the right side in. And I tried to do it all as one setup, and with the angles it just doesn't work. So this is that line on there. Looks pretty all right. It's gonna get scuffed up. It got scuffed up. I shot a couple shots of paint on it. I'm gonna get ready to do that cure cycle. Hopefully I got this thing buttoned up well enough that it can run. I'm not actually certain I got gas. I probably got to run to the gas station. I want to run new gas through it. It's only 15 degrees outside, and yeah, let's see if we can get some sound on this bad boy. So this really isn't related to the exhaust, but I'm going to show you a little trick I've learned. So what we do to get the kickstand on, we need to get this spring around this little loop there and this loop here. And you can do this with a couple screwdrivers and you will nick up everything. So what I've done is I use this. I get some wire and I wrap it around a piece of wood. And I'll show you what I do. I put it around that loop. So I've got it around the spring. And what I'll do, get a better leverage and pull it. And there we go. Look how easy that was. I have done a lot of fighting with these in the past with screwdrivers, and this is way easier. Get yourself some wire and a piece of wood. Well, it's time for the cure cycle. First one is idle for 10 minutes, cool for 20, idle for 20, cool for 20, then run under normal for 30. Since there's ice, that's not going to happen, so I'll idle for another 30. Let's see if I can get it started. Hopefully I got it connected up again. That's it. I expect to see some smoke coming off places. Should probably get a new keychain here. Very good. Running through this this cure cycle and pissing off the neighbors for the next hour and a half. I'll watch the NASCAR race and hopefully we got something soon. I think you guys deserve one last thing for making it through this video. Give it a little bit of gas now that the engine's got some heat in it. Thanks for watching.